Good morning, everyone. So pleased to be here with the Town Hall. I want to begin by acknowledging that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups, and we want to acknowledge with respect the histories and cultures of all of these groups, Indigenous groups. I want to thank everyone for joining us for the second Town Hall. It's always interesting for me because I can't see you. But we see now that we have almost 500 people who have signed on and others watching in different ways. So I really appreciate that you take the time to join us today. I want to acknowledge the vice presidents that are here: Mark Abrams, Glenn Blackwood, Neil Bowes, Ken Decker, Jeff Kesson. And we have a lot of ground to cover today, everyone. I'm going to keep my remarks really short on this blustery, wet Newfoundland day. I understand there's a lot of questions, and they range from staff returning to campus and faculty about remote delivery of courses in the winter semester. But as everyone knows, things have changed in the past couple of days. We postponed the gradual return to campus, and then we saw that the Atlantic bubble has been paused for 2 weeks. We are being cautious. We know the density on our campus presently is low, but Memorial is safe. It's safe as it can be. We have enhanced protocols in place. Many people are coming to the campus to work and will continue to come, such as myself. You can see I'm in my office. And for all of us, we need to keep calm, work together. I want to thank those who have submitted questions already, and hopefully we can address a lot of your concerns today. We will gradually return to campus, and we'll base that on public health guidance and similar initiatives that are happening at places such as the provincial government, College of the North Atlantic, and other universities, such as the University of Prince Edward Island. This helps prepare us for the gradual and eventual return of our students. And I want to recognize this is a challenging time for all of you. And I'm grateful for the commitment and hard work. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I always learn a lot when I listen to your questions. And I also look forward to the opportunity to meet most of you in person. You know, it was interesting today. I was thinking, I started at April 1st, right in the beginning of the pandemic. And I may be ending 1 year only working during the pandemic with you at Memorial. It really affects my ability to get out, to see you, to meet you, to learn, and I've been doing my best. All right, we're going to start. I'm going to ask Mark to begin by saying a few words. Provost Mark Abrams.
Thank you, Dr. Timmons, and hello, everyone. I'm glad to once again have this opportunity to talk to faculty and staff across campuses. Some of the questions we have received relate to the workload and stress created by the remote delivery of courses and whether there might be a remedy for the winter term. This item has been discussed at Dean's Council with consideration to modifying the start of the winter term or introducing breaks within the term. Regrettably, there are some academic units that do not have the flexibility to do so, so a university-level response is not possible. However, we have asked deans to be flexible, so if individual instructors feel that they would like to postpone the start date for their courses, they should consult with their dean. The point being that the flexibility that instructors have shown their students should also extend to them. There have also been questions about whether the university would consider reducing ASM and sessional instructor teaching loads to ensure the health and well-being of instructors. While I am not in a position to change courses that have already been assigned, I am aware of the stress instructors and students are under due to workload issues. I have asked CITL to provide guidance regarding weekly student assessments to avoid excessive time spent developing and marking assignments. Finally, concern has also been expressed that early career researchers, untenured faculty, women, and BIPOC scholars will be disproportionately affected by the pandemic. I will repeat here an answer I gave at the last town hall. It is certainly not the intention of the university that any group should be negatively affected by the pandemic, and the impact on tenure extensions, tenure, and promotion decisions will be monitored for this effect and corrective action taken if necessary. I would like to remind faculty that CITL is here to support all faculty members with remote delivery questions. Reach out if you need to. I'd now like to turn it over to Glenn Blackwood.
the mute button. Thank you, Mark, and good morning, everyone. I'm glad we've had this opportunity to speak again since our last town hall in August. I am thankful to all of you that since that time have remained resilient and adhering to the safety protocols set out by the province and the university. At the Marine Institute, we've been working closely with environmental health and safety to maintain a safe workplace for those employees on campus, supporting our students and clients and maintaining our buildings. In January, we look forward to welcoming new and returning students in our diploma and technical certificate programs back to campus to take part in essential practical training in their programs. For our students, we're committed to ensuring they can complete their programs and commit and participate in all the programs required by federal regulators while minimizing the time they need to be on campus. And for our clients, we've been able to deliver our micro-credentialing and applied research programs to individuals and organizations throughout the province and on our campus while adapting online processes and adhering to research protocols and maintaining low densities in our buildings. So I'd like to say thank you for what you all do on a daily basis for our students and clients. Your can-do attitude and commitment is greatly appreciated. I'd now like to turn it over to Dr. Neil Bowes.
Thanks, Glenn, and hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here and provide a brief update on our research activities. And it's timely that this event is taking place during Memorial's third annual Research Week celebrations. There are more than 40 virtual events, training sessions, workshops, networking opportunities, and so much more are happening all of the week. I encourage you to participate, and our full schedule of events is online at mon.ca/researchweek. Research is a core priority for Memorial, and it's a vital component of the critical mission of our institution. We are a strong research-based university, and in fact, Memorial continues to be recognized as one of the best universities in the world, consistently ranked within the top 500 to 700 universities. Finding ways to continue our research activities with safety in the pandemic top of mind in all disciplines and on all campuses has been important on so many levels. Earlier this year, we adopted and implemented a pan-university process. This phased approach has enabled most on-campus research to be back in action and fieldwork to be carried out within our province. Since the start of the pandemic, there have been more than 650 research activity approvals covering roughly 2,400 researchers. We are adapting our research activities to the realities of COVID-19, and I am incredibly proud of the dedication of all members of our university community in supporting and guiding our research and researchers during this time. I thank you for your cooperation, and I welcome feedback on our processes. Now over to you, Kent.
Thanks, Neil. It is great to be here with all of you this morning. I think the past week has been indicative of the past few months as we move through the pandemic. We continue to adjust. We continue to adapt as the information changes. I ask you to continue to have patience as we move through the coming months. We will monitor, we will try to anticipate what will happen with COVID, and we'll continue to adjust our plans. Maybe forward, maybe backward. I think that's something we can expect. First, I want to acknowledge the incredible dedication and the amazing work of Memorial's employees to keep our university operating, both on campus and remotely. You have my sincere thanks. We all continue to adjust to a new normal. However, I'm grateful that our campuses are safe places to come to work for those reporting on site each day. We have the right controls in place. I've been in my office sporadically, commencing in June, and more regularly for most of the fall. Of course, with new routines comes many health and safety controls. Masks are now a part of doing business, and for those of us on campus, we're not gathering in large groups, meeting rooms, boardrooms, etc. I'm now talking to my secretary through a plexiglass wall. It is a lonely place, to be honest. The absence of thousands of students is a huge change. Even with the numbers of staff in this building, it still feels empty. But we're adjusting as we have continued to do so throughout the pandemic. As we head towards December, I encourage you to participate in ongoing consultations for the campus master plan and Memorial strategic plan. Looking beyond the holidays, we will be sharing more on the anticipated opening of the new core science facility in 2021. Its impacts and benefits will be massive. We have lots to look forward to at Memorial. And I'll close by reminding everyone that our individual role in health and safety at home and on campus is always present, and particularly today, as we all have to do our part. Thank you, and over to you, Jeff.
Hey, thanks, Kent. Hello, everybody from the West Coast. So like at the St. John's campus, our enrollment increased slightly this year under the guidance of our cross-campus committee that ensures safety and compliance with provincial health regulations. Most administrative and support staff have been working on campus at least periodically, and several professors have been researching working from their office. Most courses here are obviously remote. Currently for the winter 2021 term over, some domains such as senior level fine arts courses and physics courses will be taught on campus. We've implemented plans to expand available residence space for winter 2021. We can safely, all things being continuing along the route that we're going, accommodate 200 people within our 600 spaces. Major projects at Grenfell campus are continuing. We have a tender out for our $3 million Research, Innovation, and Training Center in partnership with CNA and Corner Brook Pulp and Paper. An owner's advisor service has been contracted to advance our $25 million joint project with the City of Corner Brook for the Regional Aquatic and Recreation Center. And starting on New Year's Day in 2021, Grenfell will assume responsibility for the Bond Bay Marine Station, for which a visioning committee has been established to engage in strategic planning. My sincere appreciation to all my Grenfell colleagues for keeping us moving forward through their absolutely fantastic work despite the difficult times through which we are living. It's now my pleasure to turn things back to Dr. Timmons.
Thanks, Jeff. So you can see the VPs are all here working hard for all of you. Now I'm going to turn this over to our moderator to begin the question and answer period. I'm going to ask Megan to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Whalen. I'm the Acting Associate Director for Communications in the Division of Marketing and Communications. I have the questions that were submitted via email to ask the panelists on your behalf, and I'll also be monitoring the Q&A function that you see on your screen. If you'd like to ask a question, you can type it in there and it will come to me to relay to the President or Vice President. Now, an important note about submitting questions in that function, you have to keep your questions short, under 256 characters, because the system doesn't accept questions longer than that. So keep that in mind as you're asking, otherwise we won't be able to see it. I'd also ask that you don't choose to send your question to an individual panelist. Keep it addressed to everybody to make sure that I see it and it doesn't get overlooked. I'm also going to ask our panelists to keep their answers short while still answering the question, of course, because we want to get to as many questions as we can. And before I begin, I want to be clear about the ground rules for today. Our panelists aren't able to answer questions related to ongoing disciplinary issues, any legal matters before the courts, or any individual staffing or HR matters. Also, please don't ask any questions that might infringe on your or someone else's privacy. We'd like this to be a respectful, informative, and productive session, and we had around 50 questions submitted in advance. A lot of them did touch on the same ideas and themes, and I'm not going to repeat every question, but I do believe the list of questions I have in front of me reflect what those people were asking, so let's get to it. Dr. Timmons, recognizing, of course, that the Return to Campus initiative is postponed right now, can you explain why you think it's important for employees to return to campus when it's safe to do so?
Well, it is safe to do so, so I want to make that clear. The campus is safe right now, and I want to, or I wouldn't be here each day. We have lots of protocols in place. So we would like people to start thinking about coming back to work in consultation with their supervisors, because we feel that we'll be moving in the spring, we hope, to having our students back, and we want to start getting back to normal functioning. We're also assessing the work at home for some people who see that their productivity has increased. But there, as Kent said when he spoke, Vice President Decker, the campus is a place where lots of stuff has done in the hallways, in chatting, in offices. And since we are safe here, and for people's own mental health, many people have said, I want to start coming back to work. Can I come back? The answer is work it out with your supervisor. And yes, so we're postponing kind of a formal come back to work. But anyone can get in discussions with their supervisor about coming back and working out of their offices. And I think it's an important step to take.
Next question is for Mr. Decker. Can you please tell us more about how the university determines the level of risk related to increasing the number of employees on campus?
Absolutely. I think, excuse me, I think this is a pretty important question, so I may take a little longer than some other questions. Well, first, to evaluate risk, we look at COVID and where it is. How much COVID is in Canada, how much COVID is in Newfoundland. And this is sort of looked at as an inherent risk. And what we've seen in Canada recently is that the number of cases is increasing. In Newfoundland, we've been pretty well low for most of the year, although we have seen some cases lately. And that did impact on our decision last weekend. What we've seen mostly is that cases are related to travel. People come in, there's quick contact tracing, things get shut down pretty quick. So I think the public health system is working quite well in Newfoundland. And to be honest, I think we're probably the envy of most of the country and the world, to be frank about it. Second, when we come back to campus, we look to public health for guidance. And public health has been quite clear on what we need to do to mitigate risk. Physical distancing is number one. Wearing of masks in public would be a second. And then ensuring people wash their hands, sanitize their hands when necessary as well. So we've got pretty distinct, pretty clear recommendations. With regard to distancing, we've done extensive work in that area. Right now, our buildings are empty of students, so there's lots of space around. However, we recognize that as we bring people back, we will increase the number of potential, interactions between people. So what we've done is we've engaged Dr. Chris Cogan of the geography department, who's a GIS specialist. And he's overlaid his GIS software against our CAD drawings of our buildings on this campus and calculated what the acceptable densities could be for all of our buildings, all of our rooms, the hallways, you name it. So we've taken that, we've created standards for space. We've not created minimum standards, we've created quite reasonable, acceptable standards. And we've overlaid that to determine how many people could be in what areas at what time. That information is then used by our unit leaders and environmental health and safety to develop return to campus plans for each of the units. So it's not a sort of a guesswork. It is a fairly scientific and fairly extensive piece of work. The second mitigation would be masks. So if you're in any of our buildings, if you're in a public area, you're in a common area, you have to wear a mask. That's a given. Hand washing, sanitizers. We've provided sanitizers in all of our buildings. You'll see it all over the place when you come back. As well, we've installed plexiglass barriers, as I said, anywhere where there's interaction between our groups of people. We have other controls as well. Self-assessments daily. If you have one symptom, you stay home. That's pretty clear. We have training required before you come back to work, and you'll see that online. We're recommending the Health Canada Safety app for people, which that one provides a standard of 6 feet distance for, I guess, more than 15 minutes. So if you're in contact with somebody who's positive for more than 15 minutes and less than 6 feet, it'll let you know that. That's the Health Canada guideline. And we're also asking people to keep contact lists. So if there are people in your offices, just make a note of who's in your office on a regular basis should we need to do contact tracing. As well, public health, we have extensive consultation with public health, daily, weekly. Dr. Donovan and Dr. Sevier have been huge resources for us. And actually, they're quite interested in the work that we've done on density, how it might apply to others. So our messaging last Sunday was out of an abundance of caution, we're going to defer coming back to work. Public health actually was very appreciative in many ways of that message, because it does send a message to the general community that this is not a time to let your guard down. It's a time to maintain vigilance. I think we may have earned some points with public health for doing that. So in conclusion, I guess we are proactive. We are looking ahead where we can. We're trying to anticipate what might happen. And I guess to reiterate what Dr. Timmons said, if you still want to come back, I know there's some people who would like to come back to work. Talk to your supervisor. Let's see if we can make that happen. I know I find it myself, it's been a bit of a relief to come back, work in my office and sort of separate my work life and my home life a little bit. I think that's been a bit of a challenge for myself and for a lot of people. So thank you for that question, whoever asked it.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Mr. Blackwood?
Yeah, sure. I think what Kent said is accurate. We have people that are back and people who have to come back in terms of servicing students or some of the micro-credentialing, but we are keeping the building densities low. People won't recognize the place when they do return, from the sign-in kiosks to the scan systems, to the huge amounts of plexiglass, to the numbers of people you can have in a room that are posted, and the fact that there's nobody wandering around the building. And the absence of large student body is very noticeable. So the place, like Kent said, feels a little bit lonely at times. And wearing a mask every time you get up from your desk. Sometimes you stand up and forget it for a second, but it's been challenging. But we're also operating and servicing the students and the clients, which is, as I said earlier, greatly appreciated by everybody. And I think the EHS is a challenge. I think our document, Kent, was 270 pages of every space that we operate from, and engaging all of our people. So a good job on that. And, I feel that the campus is safe, and we'll just continue to do the cleaning and the signage and the separation and the mask as we continue to operate. Thank you.
Dr. Keshen, returning to campus, is there anything that you would like to add from Grenfell campus's perspective?
As Kent knows, we've been working really closely with folks out in St. John's, and we follow the same health protocols. I will say that I'm incredibly proud of this campus, the way that people have come together. As Kent and the others know, we have a cross-campus committee that brings together FM, IT, all the various sectors. We have the 5 buildings, so we collaborate. We know where people are at different areas, ensuring that we don't overtax, for example, our custodial or CEP, that we maintain our density levels. So Grenfell campus has been really operating very effectively, bringing people back on campus and ensuring that it's all really well coordinated.
The next question is for Dr. Abrahams. Can you explain why the Return to Campus initiative focused on non-academic staff and not academic staff? One staff member wrote in about feeling singled out and as though they were the test to make sure it's safe for academic staff to come back to work, back to campus, I should say.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that question. Absolutely not. We're not singling out non-academic staff. In fact, academic staff have been able to come back on campus since the summer. And as Vianne and Kent of others have pointed out, administrative offices have been open for some time. The provost office has been operational since October the 7th. So we're certainly not asking non-academic staff, we're not asking them to do anything we're not prepared to do ourselves.
And many of the questions that we received are related to working remotely and whether or not it could or should continue. So we're going to focus on that area for the next few questions. And I'm going to ask Mr. Decker to answer. But if other panelists want to weigh in, you can just give me a little wave so I can call on you next. So Mr. Decker, one employee wrote in to say that their manager would attest that they've met all of their deadlines since working remotely. They're 99% computer-based, and they've personally been able to achieve a work-life balance for the first time in a long time. They're curious about the process for making a more permanent remote work arrangement, as was mentioned in a recent Gazette article. Can you please describe what that process might look like and what steps an employee in this position should take?
Thank you. Excellent question. I think remote work has the potential to offer great benefits to the organization, to individuals, and essentially from a sustainability perspective. If we have fewer people on the roads, fewer people driving back and forth, lower carbon footprint, smaller parking lots, you've heard me say this in a number of different forms. So I think there's great potential. In order to proceed, what should happen is individuals should initiate a discussion with the supervisor. The supervisor, director, dean will then work with the VP in the area to evaluate whether or not we think it makes sense for a more permanent remote work situation. We don't have a policy right now, which we know about remote work. However, we are able to undertake pilot projects, and we've done that in the past. So where it makes sense, what we would suggest that a pilot project be initiated. The pilot project would probably be set up for a year. That would be normal. And at the end of that, we would then do a formal evaluation of how it worked for the individual, how it worked for the organization. Did goals get accomplished? essentially a full evaluation. We did that last year with an area that we were working with, and it was actually quite eye-opening, some of the things we learned from it. So I think the pilot and the evaluation is a good opportunity. So yes, talk to your supervisor, that would be the start, and then we'll sort of have a look through it up to the VP level.
And you've answered the next question, which was about a return to campus or work from home policy. So I'll skip that one.
No, actually, I could add a couple of things. Sorry, on that is that we are using pilots. However, we have started a process around the policy. So I want to let people know we've started that. The HR and CAP have started to design a survey that will be used to get the views of employees in particular about the current work from home situation. So we'll use that to actually start to process around, I guess, the creation of a policy. So just alert people to that as well. Sorry to interrupt, Megan, but I thought that was important.
Absolutely. And since the beginning of the pandemic, the majority of Memorial University staff have been working from home. Although this was a challenge in the beginning, the pandemic has allowed us to discover a working environment that many of us have never experienced before. After working from home for several months, I'm comfortable doing so, but I also miss my lovely colleagues at the same time. I was wondering if Memorial would allow staff in certain units to work from home on a part-time basis, 2 or 3 days a week. I'm hoping that our university's work policy will evolve in this ever-changing world. While all staff cannot do so because of their duties, there are several units that can benefit from this flexibility.
So again, I think that would all be part of the, I guess, the plan for a particular unit or for a particular process. And I can see where in some cases it might make sense to not be fully at home, or it could be part-time, back and forth. Maybe we need to create spaces on campus that are normally referred to as hoteling spaces, where you can drop in and make use of a sort of a temporary arrangement that gets shared amongst a large group of people, but provides that necessary time on campus. Of course, that's more difficult in the pandemic situation, the sharing of an actual office space. But we need to keep in mind that we're in this for the long run. The pandemic is a temporary thing, it will end, and we need to make sure our policy is suited for the long term.
Next question is for Dr. Timmons. Although the return to campus initiative is paused, we heard from someone who was questioning the way it was applied across units. Was there any disparity in the university's directive to different areas, or are units deciding for themselves to implement the initiative differently?
Yeah, Megan, before you answer that, I want to just respond to a couple of things that come up in the questions. I want to thank the person who said it's return to campus, not return to work, and we'll all have to watch that language because I know people are working hard at home and on campus. So, and I also will mention, somebody said as an academic, you keep mentioning supervisor. As an academic, absolutely, department head would be who you would speak to if you're looking at accommodations or coming back to your office. On this one here, this directive was the same to every unit, and it was up to each unit to look at implementing it. There were some discrepancies for various reasons. And, you know, the one thing is we're a complex, large organization. And we look to the leaders on the campus to implement directives and policies and processes. And we also look to them to look at the individual units and to understand if some special accommodations have to be made. It's very, I know that makes it hard because you see a unit acting differently than your unit does and you wonder why is that. Well, we don't know what each unit's situation is, what the people in that unit is. Some units are very close and are maybe more difficult to be able to do the physically distancing. Others are not, they're fine. So each unit leader was asked to take a good look under the umbrella directive and see how they could implement the phased in coming back to work. But now, as we know, we've paused it as the Atlantic bubble is paused.
The next question is close to that, but I'm going to ask you to answer it as well, Dr. Timmons, because one employee wrote in to say that when one colleague in their own unit is working remotely while others are on campus, it does create feelings of resentment, confusion, and even anger among those in the office. How would you respond to that perceived inequity?
Well, I would say that we're human, right? And we look at people's situation and we sometimes do make judgments. That's what being human is all about. But we don't know the personal circumstances of our colleagues and individuals. And we're trying to be an empathetic, humane organization and accommodate people who live in different situations. I, for example, now I have a daughter who has a health defect who lives in my home with me. you know, at some point, if I had to, I may have to, you know, if things get challenging, may have to move to work from home to keep her safe. So there's all kinds of different reasons people live, that accommodations are made in all different situations for people. So I think I'm just asking you to be generous and kind. And if you have questions, ask them to get the right information that you need, because it is hard when we see others who maybe are not doing the same things we are.
And again, this is connected to the next question, but I'm going to address this one to Mr. Decker. How are exceptions for people who are immunocompromised or who have people who are immunocompromised family members handled when we do return to campus? Is that entirely at a supervisor's discretion? Does it require a doctor's note? And is there a process to appeal if one supervisor is uncompromising?
First, this is not a supervisor issue at all. Many times these are confidential health issues. So there is an accommodation form that would go to HR. We are using our disability consultant for the process. So no, don't take these kinds of issues to your supervisor. That's not the process. It's a centralized HR and professional process around that. Just to be clear on that.
Another question for Mr. Decker. With strict COVID protocols around displaying symptoms that are often associated with the common cold or allergies, will employees be given any direction for sick day usage, or would they be required to work remotely if they were feeling unwell?
Yeah, I guess the way to look at it, and as I look at it, no different than you normally would in many ways. If you have a symptom, and a lot of us do on a daily basis with allergies and asthma and everything else, if you have a symptom, then you stay home. If you're able to work from home, then you work from home. I think a good example is Eddie Shearer's been doing the weather from his basement on NTV all week. If you can work, work. If you can't work because you're not feeling well, then you're sick, so you would have to be on sick leave. So sort of view it that way. View your home office or your own work area the same as if you were going to work. If you can't work, you're sick. If you're able to work, sure, go ahead.
Another question for Mr. Decker. Do employees who are working on campus require parking permits?
Well, this has been a back and forth for a while. We've done a bit of, I guess, trying to figure this out. Parking and food are always two of the most complex issues at any organization. But what we come down to is that if you had a permit last year, we will give you the same permit this year. So you will have to have a permit. We need to maintain a certain amount of order. However, you won't have to pay for the permit. So the permit will be provided to you free of charge, but please get the permit.
Okay. Dr. Keshen, is that the same at Grenfell campus? Anything you want to add about parking?
It's the same thing at our campus.
And Mr. Blackwood?
Yeah, no, the permits are available from our administrative office in finance, and they're, as Ken said, being provided free of charge.
Great. The next question is for Dr. Timmons, and it is a bit of a long one. During this difficult and stressful time, students, faculty, and staff have expressed their frustration and anger at the expectation that we carry on performing at a level of work reflective of pre-pandemic times. This, despite the realities of pandemic stress, working from home, extra childcare, and other care responsibilities, and having to rapidly adjust to remote teaching and learning. In response to these concerns, faculty have been routinely asked to be flexible and understanding and offer students extra support. Yet the expectations behind these concepts have not been clearly defined, and faculty concerns about overload have been dismissed. My question is, how will the Office of the President respond to faculty concerns? And where is the flexibility for academic staff members who are overwhelmed by expectations to become tech experts overnight, teach a regular course load, continue with service and research responsibilities, plus offer students extra support and understanding?
So this was very eloquently said by a faculty member, and you are correct. I've asked you as faculty to be empathetic and understanding to our students, because I hear from students, in particular first-year students, and many of their parents about the challenges these students are facing. But in asking you to be empathetic, it does not mean that I'm not empathetic to your situation. You know, we have a lot of empathy to go around for a lot of people. You hope you work closely with your head of your department and your dean, and if you're experiencing stress and overload, that you reach out to all the supports we have in place for you as professors. And this may be a time where you pull back a little bit on your service and you really take care of yourself. Wellness is really, really important. So I would say that we cannot go out formally and say we're going to make changes in the work situation. We're bound by a collective agreement. We're bound by teaching obligations to our students, and we're bound by a very tight budget. So we're doing the best we can to support you in any way we can, but it is a challenge. I understand the expectations are a lot, and I'm so proud of you as professors and staff, how you've stepped up in this really, really challenging time. It will be a year we will look back on. I'm going to ask the provost also to speak to this, because I know that he's been fielding a lot of concerns by faculty, and I want to make sure that you hear from him.
Thank you, Dr. Timmons. Yes, I think empathy and flexibility are really the two key mechanisms that we need to be using to accommodate both students and faculty and staff, really everybody through this this tumultuous time. And so I know there are some questions with respect to workload issues. One of the things that we're looking at is, are we assigning too much work? This is having an impact on our instructors because they're preparing too many assignments, spending too much time working and creating stress within our students. So I've asked CITL to take a look at what is an appropriate level of assessment, because the likely answer is we're doing too much assessment. So we're creating stress for our faculty, we're creating stress for our students, and we think there's a middle ground that's going to get us all to a much better place. So we continue to refine our strategies as we work through this time.
The idea of a delayed start for winter semester did come up in a number of questions. I'll read one of them now from a faculty member who wrote to say, many other Canadian universities are delaying the start of their winter terms. Have you considered a delayed start for MUN? As a junior faculty member, this term has been brutal in terms of course preparation and delivery. I'm both physically and mentally exhausted. I would appreciate an extra week, not only to help prepare for the winter term, but also to ensure that I can take a bit of a mental health break during the holidays. If not, I will have to work straight through the holidays, and I fear that myself and my colleagues will burn out early in the winter term, which will negatively impact our students. Dr. Abrams, can you respond?
Sure. So we'll go back to those two touch points of empathy and flexibility. So we absolutely did discuss this issue at Dean's Council. It turned out for many academic units, this was not a possibility for them. So for the university as a whole to make a change, it was something that we could not do, but we did discuss, and I want to reiterate that point, that deans do have flexibility. So individual instructors who are feeling stressed, who do feel that they would need some additional time, please contact your department head or your dean and indicate that you're going to delay a start to your courses for the reasons that were described in this question.
Maybe I can add, Mark, some universities who have delayed the winter term have students that are in class, such as St. FX. They did not go to entirely remote online like we did. So they have to leave 2 weeks for the students to self-isolate and return when they return. So there are different reasons that universities have delayed it, but the majority of Canadian universities have not. And if you delay it, then it's on the back end also, which makes it complicated for co-op and work terms and many other issues. So I want to keep stressing this. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I hope you all do, but the winter term will be very challenging, such as this fall term was, until we get through this pandemic. And we'll all have to work together on this.
The next question is also for Dr. Abrams. This person says they'd like to echo the reflections of their colleagues in pointing to the increased workload placed on instructors due to the pandemic. And their question was whether the university would consider reducing academic staff member and sessional instructor teaching loads to improve the situation and ensure the health and well-being of instructors. Dr. Abrams?
Absolutely. So this is a very similar question to the previous one. And so we do have limited capacity with which to change the number of courses or the duration of courses. So we really need to be focusing on empathy and flexibility. So if an individual instructor feels overwhelmed, this is a conversation they need to have with their department head or dean if they need to cancel a class or two.
Next question relates to the Faculty of Medicine. So Darcy, I'm going to ask you to bring Dr. Kathy Vardy on screen as a panelist. Dr. Vardy is the Vice Dean of Medicine, And I'll wait until we see her here and know that she has a good connection before I ask this question. There, she's quick, she's almost there. Dr. Vardy, can you hear us? Can you unmute?
Am I on mute now?
We can hear you. We can't
Perfect.
see your video, but that's okay.
I can change that. There.
The question we have for you is that Faculty of Medicine staff returned to working on campus on November 9th and were required to work 20 hours in the office. An employee is wondering why there were different guidelines for medicine staff and asked why all of MUN staff have not been given the same return to campus plan. Can you respond?
Certainly. First, I'd like to thank all our staff and faculty because I know we've all been working quite hard through the COVID. So I think the president responded partially to this when she said that different faculties were allowed leeway in how they could implement the return to work. So as many of you know, the Faculty of Medicine is a little bit different. We have some of our students in clinical rotations, both our senior undergraduate medical students and our postgraduate trainees. So a lot of our faculty and staff have actually been back working full-time to support not only our learners, which include undergrad, postgrad, and graduate students, as well as some of our researchers had exemptions and they were back in the lab. So when it came to a decision that we knew MUN was looking at moving their people from working at home to working on campus, we tried to be fair and equitable to all faculty and staff, and we came up on 20 hours. Now, with that 20 hours, we were very cognizant of all the things that Mr. Decker talked about with social distancing, plexiglass, etc. Of course, things have changed. And as of the weekend, our chief, Mr. Paul Tucker, notified all staff that we're going back to our previous work from home policy.
Thank you, Dr. Vardy. Next question is for Dr. Bose. Faculty are free to work in their offices, but require separate approvals for working in their research labs. Will there be a move to harmonize and streamline campus access for faculty and graduate students who want to be on campus and travel for research purposes?
Yes, thank you. The aim has been to be flexible in the approach to the requests coming through for access to labs and so on. And it's important that we ensure that people are safe when they do this, especially if they're working closely and sharing equipment. So we've got to be careful we don't exceed the density limits, and the research approvals are still required for work in labs, but we are reviewing them and simplifying them so that those approvals, which now come through the academic units and go to EHS for sign-off, can be streamlined as much as possible. And we're looking at the travel ones too to see that, to ensure that they also are reviewed and simplified as much as possible and are aligned with each other.
Next question for Dr. Abrahams. Many faculty are finding that the students are not engaging and we feel like it's being put on us to get them to do this, but we can't go to their house and put them online. Are students being told perhaps that taking fewer courses at a time might be wise? Can we reduce scholarship requirements and redefine full-time students for this year to make it easier?
Yeah, okay, thank you for that question. Memorial's Academic Advising Center provides students with the information they need to properly get started in their courses, and that includes tips on how to interact with faculty members, how to stay engaged in their classes, etc. Students are assigned academic advisors who advise course selection and course load and help students find a balance that's right for them while meeting the requirements of their programs. Every individual student scenario is unique, and we hope that students reach out to their advisors when they need assistance.
Mr. Decker, the next question comes from an employee with young children who has not been able to secure or resecure childcare due to reduced capacity of childcare facilities province-wide. When the Return to Campus initiative resumes, do you have any advice for them, or can they continue working from home?
Sorry about that. I'm still not getting the mute button. First, if I could just respond to a question that popped up about clarifying the parking. And I did get a text from my communication person Sandy saying, Kent, you got it wrong. If you are in one of the premium lots, you need to get a permit. If you're not, then you can park wherever you want on campus. Keep in mind, we will be cordoning off some of the parking lots as snow starts to accumulate. So we won't be clearing the same number of lots we are now. So if you're in a premium lot, yes, you get a permit. If you're not, park wherever you want on campus. Now back to the question. Obviously, childcare is a pretty significant issue for a lot of people. Again, what we're trying to do is provide as much advance notice as we can for people to return to work. And normally we gave, I think the last time, 2 weeks. We'll try to provide as much notice as we can to enable people to try to find childcare. We also, as we've been saying all along, we're asking people to show some understanding and work with people so that they can take time and arrange for childcare in order for them to get back. So it's not a, they must come back exactly right now. Let's work with people. Let's make sure we understand people's issues and try to get people back in a reasonable fashion. I guess as well, touching on some of the things we spoke earlier about returning to campus. Now we're saying a minimum of 2 days. So it's not an all or nothing, although some faculties, as we saw with medicine and some other areas, may want to have people back more than that, then we are leaving some of that up to individual faculties and units.
Next question for Dr. Abrahams. The teaching workload has increased exponentially this semester as faculty learn to adapt to online teaching. Across the board, it has disproportionately affected early career researchers, untenured faculty, women, and Black, Indigenous people of color scholars. What is Memorial's plan to address these inequalities?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I believe a similar question came up at our last town hall. So I'm going to repeat the answer I provided to that question at the last town hall. And the answer is Memorial University is committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. It is not the intention of the university that any group should be negatively affected by the pandemic, and the impact on tenure extensions, tenure, and promotion decisions will be monitored for this effect, and corrective action taken if necessary.
Dr. Timmons, one employee would like to know how faculty members and employees can best support you.
So I'm going to give you a few things you can do to best support me, and it's really to support the university. First of all, to speak positively about the university and the community. I've been trying to counter some negative impressions out there about the university, so that would be really important. Lifting the reputation of Memorial is all of our duty to do, and in particular in the pandemic, we're under scrutiny. People are watching and commenting on everything we do. So we need to keep promoting the positive impact Memorial has on our community, and that is an investment. And it is a driver of economic development in this province of Newfoundland and Labrador. So that's important. How to support me personally is to be empathetic to others. I get a lot of issues from that parents contact me more than ever. Parents are over their kids' shoulders as they work in their bedrooms now. They're seeing the best of Memorial University and they're seeing the worst of Memorial University. So, you know, it helps a lot if you understand the situation that our students are in, if you're empathetic to your colleagues and supportive of each other. And you can also support me by just saying hi if you see me on the street, which many of you have done. Because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to get out to meet each and every one of you. And I have to tell you that really makes it challenging for me to understand Memorial in its fullest when I can't get to know the people. Thank you for all that you've been doing, though. I really do feel supported. I feel supported every single day. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. It's working.
We have just about 10 minutes left to this town hall and still plenty of questions to get to. So let's try and keep our answers brief where we can. Mr. Decker, one employee is asking if Memorial will be retroactively paying our internet, electric, and phone bills for the past 8 to 9 months or compensating us in any way. There was another question similar asking if the university will be approving work from home expense forms for the 2020 taxation year.
Thank you. What we've been doing throughout the pandemic is where employees have specific expenses that are related to university business, we've been paying those. And we've had several examples where people have been using their home phones, their cell phones, making long distance calls, connecting with people sometimes around the world. So yes, we've been picking up those kinds of expenses. With regard to home office expenses, things like electricity, internet, etc. The Canada Revenue Agency has made a change in its regulations this year. And the change is that if you're working from home, it's now assumed, this is my understanding of the change, it's assumed that you're required to work from home. And therefore, you can claim those kinds of expenses. What we will do through our Finance and Administrative Services Department is we'll track that as much information as we can around that and get that information up online so people can access it. Where there are forms required, yes, absolutely, we will provide those forms. I would expect that many people will need those this year, and you will be able to offset some of your costs of your household office against your tax return and get some money back, hopefully, on your taxes. That's the approach on that one.
Next question for Dr. Abrahams. Prior to COVID, the university reduced or eliminated many faculty administrative supports. Chronically operating in a crisis mode for many years, COVID pushed many of us beyond our limits. What will the university do to start restoring a better work environment, to recognize reduced workloads to a more reasonable level, to address the issue of stress and anxiety that were created by misdirected budget cuts, and to restore community to Memorial?
Right. So this is a bit of a history question. This predates COVID by quite a bit. And I'm relatively new to the role of provost, but my understanding is the university has been subject to numerous consecutive years of budget cuts. The rationale behind these budget cuts was to hold academic units harmless, so the majority of these cuts were absorbed by administrative units, creating the situation which is described in this question. Where we would now like to go is have a conversation with the government to look at a different funding model for the university that would allow us to address these and other issues.
Sorry, you finished while I was still reading another question. I'll move on. I've had a few questions in the Q&A function about folks not fully understanding why it's not possible for Memorial to delay the start of the term, given that other universities in US and Canada are doing so. Is Memorial unique in this regard, and if so, how? Dr. Abrahams.
Well, as Dr. Timmons explained in her response, no, we're not unique in this regard. I think the response for changing that start date had to do with universities which were focusing much more on face-to-face. It required a self-isolation period. We're primarily remote and do not require that.
Are there any plans for limited pilot projects in hybrid teaching with the majority of students online and a limited number of students attending in person? Also for Dr. Abrahams.
So again, this issue came up at our last town hall, and I certainly have had a conversation with CITL on this issue. The challenge we have with the hybrid teaching model is it actually creates more stress, not less stress, for the people teaching those courses. So we have stayed away from that approach simply because of the workload issue.
A comment that another question here. Access to the main tunnel for buildings that don't have direct access, such as music buildings, they have to go through the science building, but restricted access prevents us. Can we get permission on our proximity cards to access these buildings for the purpose of accessing tunnels?
I think that's probably for me. So we'll have facilities management review access. Right now, I believe the main tunnels are actually not open. However, as we get into the winter and we get more staff back on campus, that's probably something we'll look at. So yeah, we'll have a look at all those accesses and work that out as we move through the fall and winter.
Another one for you, Mr. Decker. Have there been any enhanced security measures in relation to buildings and campus access, particularly more security patrols? With reduced numbers of people on campus, it's eerily quiet and can feel insecure.
I vouch for the eerily quiet, absolutely. We've got a regular number of TEP officers are on campus, our regular monitoring for cameras. We have in excess of 500 cameras, I believe, on this campus. So that's all been done. So there's not been enhanced security. However, you will notice if you come that most of our buildings are locked. We're starting to open them up. This building is open where there are more people here. So again, we're monitoring the number of people in buildings. We're keeping some of them locked, some of them open. It sort of depends on the situation.
One person wrote to say that in the Faculty of Science labs, laboratory staff have worked hard to port the lab curriculum to remote delivery. With the talk of return to campus, for many of us, it doesn't make sense. Will departments be able to make that decision case by case?
Yeah, I was looking at that question. And I was trying to understand exactly what's being asked. We're continuing with primarily remote, so that has not changed. We're not planning on bringing our students into the lab. So the issue is simply whether the lab instructors can work more effectively at home than they can work at work, and that again is a conversation they would need to have with their department head.
This is related, but someone is asking if we can confirm or clarify if individual vice presidents have the authority to initiate remote working trials, or does it have to go back to Vice President's Council for discussion?
I guess I'll try and answer that question because I chair Vice President's Council, and so I'm going to confess naivete on that process with respect to the process issue. Honestly, I do not know whether the Vice Presidents would have authority to initiate that on their own, or whether it would need to go through Vice President's Council for approval first. But I could certainly find out very quickly.
And not a question, but oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I believe the individual VP would have a lot of sway in the decision in that regard. So it's unlikely VP Council would say to one of the other VPs, no, you can't do that in your area.
Yeah, I would
That's
actually.
normally the way we work.
I concur on that. We're a pretty collaborative group and support each other with our various projects. So, yeah.
And this is not a question, but a comment that I'm going to pass along. Someone said they work very closely with faculty researchers, and they're very impressed with the volume and quality. Oh dear, my screen just jumped. Of the scholarship and sorry.
Yeah, I read that. It was great. It's great to see. And I've been meeting a few people, and I met a faculty member yesterday who said that he was able to be very productive from working at home and produced actually 2 books. So I think I know the faculty is, the research levels for many have been very productive.
If someone was in close contact with someone from Nova Scotia on the past weekend while still in the Atlantic bubble, are they permitted to come to campus?
They are following the public health rules, I believe. You know, they just need to follow the public health rules.
Okay.
So they are. Kent?
No, that would be my assessment as well. That would be the public health rules. And at that time, there was an Atlantic bubble, and you're still allowed to come. I think the Atlantic bubble ends tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. However, I would think most people are monitoring for symptoms and ensuring proper distancing, that kind of thing. So I think people, for the most part, associated with the university are very responsible in terms of mask wearing, maintaining distance, et cetera.
Popping back up to a question that was asked earlier that I missed. As an administrative person with a medical issue, is working from home even an option, giving administrative staff are sometimes the front and center for their department? Mr. Decker, can you answer?
It sounds like one of those instances where we need to have a look at it from an accommodation perspective. I'll talk to HR, and as I said, there is a form that can be used and an assessment made in that case.
Okay. Someone commented to say thank you to the president and vice presidents for their support and leadership during this time and for hosting sessions such as these. I see one more question that I'm going to ask before we close out. Someone else is asking, they're concerned about the possible stigma individual faculty might face if and when asking for a delayed start to term for mental health reasons. How would you mitigate this possibility, Dr. Abrahams?
Again, that's a conversation to have with the relevant department head or dean. There is no need to disclose the rationale for why. All the students really need to know is when are you going to start teaching?
The other thing I'll mention, Megan, is we're a university. We're an institution of higher learning, and we need to be able to challenge that stigma of mental health issues. So my husband went through a period of time of severe depression, and I talk about it openly, and we need to be role models in the community to try to smash that stigma. And as supervisors and leaders on campus, that's my expectation of you. The other thing, Megan, is they said, why an hour? An hour is about what we should try to keep Zoom meetings to, and to keep WebEx meetings to. After an hour, people start to fade off. So this is just trying to do best practices in meetings. But it sounds like people are appreciative of the town hall meetings. And my intent is that we continue them, and we'll probably do one in the new year, early new year, to just catch up and get everybody up to date with what's going on campus. The other thing I want to mention to you, there are a lot of people who are working every day on campus, and please, if you're in the hallway, take the time to thank them. Our custodians, our security people, Many of our colleagues, I was just in the registrar's office, they're working here. A lot of people are working on campus, and I'm anticipating that more will be coming back. It is safe to come to the campus and work. I want to thank the VPs for participating in this, and all of you for your thoughtful questions, and they are thoughtful. And maybe we couldn't get to them all. Hopefully we did our best. Some of them are challenging because we're all learning together during this difficult time. But I really encourage you to reach out to any of us at any time for clarity on any issues. And I am so proud of all the work all of you have done. I'm proud of Memorial University, and I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to be your president. We're doing this together, one step at a time. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you, Megan, too.